predominating deities of all planets. The oceans and the seas were full of valuable jewels and pearls, and the hills were full of chemicals and fertilizer. Four kinds of edibles were produced profusely. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. As stated in Ishopanishad, this material creation is supplied with all the potencies for the production of all necessities required by the living entities, not only human beings, but animals, reptiles, aquatics, and trees. The oceans and seas produce pearls, coral, and valuable jewels so that fortunate, law-abiding people can utilize them. Similarly, the hills are full of chemicals so that when rivers flow down from them, the chemicals spread over the fields to fertilize the four kinds of foodstuffs. These are technically known as carvia, those edibles which are chewed, neha, those which are licked up, kushya, those which are swallowed, and peya, those which are drunk. Pita Maharaja was greeted by the residents of other planets and their presiding deities. They presented various gifts to the king and acknowledged him as the proper type of king by whose planning and activities everyone throughout the universe could be happy and prosperous. Well, that's a good king. It is clearly indicated in this verse that the oceans and seas were meant for producing jewels, but in Kali Yuga, the oceans are mainly being utilized for fishing. Sudras and poor men were allowed to fish, but the higher classes, like the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, would gather pearls, jewels, and coral. Although poor men would catch tons of fish, they would not be equal in value to one piece of coral or pearl. Wow. In this age, so many factories for the manufacture of fertilizers have been opened. But when the personality of Godhead is pleased by the performance of yajnas, the hills automatically produce fertilizing chemicals, which help produce edibles in the fields. Everything is dependent on the people's acceptance of the Vedic principles of sacrifice. Yes. So, if the population today engages in Krishna consciousness, then nature will supply everything necessary for having a peaceful and opulent life. But as long as people are engaged in sinful activities, meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, intoxication, and so forth, Lumi Devi holds back her opulences or makes it much more difficult for having these desirable things. And what are those desirable things? Well, coral or pearl. And it says here, although poor men would catch tons of fish, they would not be equal in value to one piece of coral or pearl. In this age, so many factories for the manufacture of fertilizers have been opened, But when the personality of Godhead is pleased by the performance of yajnas, the hills automatically produce fertilizing chemicals, which help produce edibles in the fields. Everything is dependent on the people's acceptance of the Vedic principles of sacrifice. There it is, very important statement. Okay, so now we're going to text number 10. King Prithu was dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Adhoksaja. Because King Prithu performed so many sacrifices, he was superhumanly enhanced by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. King Prithu's opulence, however, could not be tolerated by the King of Heaven, Indra, who tried to impede the progress of his opulence. So again, Indra is jealous and he's going to cause trouble because he cannot be happy when Prithu Maharaj is engaging in the very advanced and very superhumanly types of opulences. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, there are three significant purposes expressed in the words Adhoksaja, Bhagavan Indra, and Prithu. Maharaj Prithu is an incarnation of Vishnu. Yet, he is a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. Although an empowered incarnation of Lord Vishnu, he is nonetheless a living entity. As such, he must be a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although one is empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is an incarnation, he should not forget his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Kali Yuga, there are many self-made incarnations, rascals, who declare themselves to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words Bhagavan, Indra indicate that a living entity can even be as exalted and powerful as King Indra. For even King Indra is an ordinary living entity in the material world and possesses the four defects of the conditioned soul. King Indra is described herein as Bhagavan, which is generally used in reference to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this case, however, King Indra is addressed as Bhagavan because he has so much power in his hands. Despite his becoming Bhagavan, he is envious of the incarnation of God, Prithu Maharaja. Well, see, that's the problem, enviousness. The defects of material life are so strong that due to contamination, King Indra becomes envious of an incarnation of God. Wow. We should try to understand, therefore, how a conditioned soul becomes fallen. The opulence of King Prithu was not dependent on material conditions. As described in this verse, he was a great devotee of Ahoksaka Krishna. The word Ahoksaka indicates the personality of Godhead, who is beyond the expression of mind and words. However, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears before the devotee in his original form of eternal bliss and knowledge. The devotee is allowed to see the Supreme Lord face to face, although the Lord is beyond the expression of our senses and beyond our direct perception. Okay, so such vision of the Lord is possible when someone is surrendered to the Lord. The whole process of surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is essential to have a peaceful and happy life. But as long as people are ignoring or avoiding to surrender to the Lord, they just engage in sinful activities, and that really corrupts society. And people have to labor unnecessarily in order to have a life or the necessities of life, when those necessities are given freely and abundantly when people act uh, saintly in the saintly way. So, although uh, it says here, the devotee is allowed to see the Supreme Lord face to face, although the Lord is beyond the expression of our senses and beyond our direct perception. So, that's the special, let's say, mercy of the Lord. He'll reveal himself so that we can see him face to face. Just imagine what is that like, or that what would be like that. One would be overwhelmed with love if you see Krishna face to face. Text 11. When Prithu Maharaj was performing the last horse sacrifice, Asmaveda Yagya, King Indra, invisible to everyone, stole the horse intended for sacrifice. He did this because of his great envy of King Prithu. Wow. This enviousness is a very, very nasty and corrupting quality. Uh, Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. King Indra is known as Satakratu, which indicates that he has performed 100 horse sacrifices or Ashvamedha Yagyas. We should know, however, that the animals sacrificed in the yajna were not killed. If the Vedic mantras were properly pronounced during the sacrifice, the animal sacrifice would come out again with a new life. That is the test for a successful yajna. When King Prithu was performing 100 yajnas, Indra became very envious because he did not want anyone to excel him, meaning being greater than him. Being an ordinary living entity, he became envious of King Prithu, and making himself invisible, he stole the horse and thus impeded the yajna performance. While these horse sacrifices, they don't actually kill the horse, they rejuvenate the horse. Of course, now in modern times, these type of sacrifices are forbidden because people don't know how to say the mantras correctly. The only way or the only mantra that is successful in the age of Kali is the Hare Krishna mantra. All the other mantras are not pronounced correctly, and therefore it's not recommended that one should chant them. One should just chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra for having all types of opulences if they are using those opulences in the service of Krishna. So, therefore, it says here, if the Vedic mantras were properly pronounced during the sacrifice, the animal sacrificed would come out again with a new life. That is the test for a successful yajna. When King Prithu was performing 100 yajnas, Indra became very envious because he did not want anyone to excel him. Being an ordinary living entity, he became envious of King Prithu, and making himself invisible, he stole the horse and thus impeded the yajna performance. Okay, so this is a horse sacrifice, and by stealing the horse, there's no sacrifice. So uh, that just shows how envious King Indra was. He didn't want Prithu Maharaj to be successful. That's what envy is all about. It's to uh, there's different levels. There is jealousy, which means that you are not happy that somebody else is greater than you. But when you can become equal to that person, your jealousy goes away. But enviousness is that uh, you have to be greater than someone else, but that's not enough. You have to destroy the other person. You see, so there is uh, there's a enviousness which is more dangerous than just jealousy. Enviousness, you're not satisfied being equal or greater than someone else. You want to destroy the other person completely. So it seems as if King Indra was like that. He was not just jealous, but he was full of this very mean, nasty desire to completely destroy Prithu Maharaj. Okay, text number 12. When King Indra was taking away the horse, in other words, he was stopping the sacrifice, uh, he dressed himself to appear as a liberated person. Actually, this dress was a form of cheating, for it falsely created an impression of religion. When Indra went into outer space in this way, the great sage Atri saw him and understood the whole situation. Now, Atri Muni is a great personality. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen in purport. The word Pakanda used in this verse is sometimes pronounced Prashanda. Both of these words indicate an impostor who presents himself as a very religious person, but in actuality is sinful. Indra took up the saffron-colored dress as a way of cheating others. This saffron dress has been misused by many impostors who present themselves as liberated persons or incarnations of God. In this way, people are cheated. And we have mentioned many times the conditioned soul has a tendency to cheat. Therefore, this quality is also visible in a person like King Indra. It is understood that even King Indra is not liberated from the clutches of material contamination. Thus, the words amuktam iva, meaning as if he were liberated, are used. The saffron dress worn by a sannyasi announces to the world that he has renounced all worldly affairs and is simply engaged in the service of the Lord. Such a devotee is actually a sannyasi or liberated person. In Bhagavad Gita 6.1, it is said, Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karotiya sa sannyasi cha yogi cha sa niragnir cha chakriya. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. Well, if he performs no, uh, he does not light any fire and performs no work, then he can't be a genuine sadhu, meaning that he's not doing any type of yagyas to please the Lord. He's being selfish. In other words, one who offers the results of his activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually a sannyasi and yogi. Cheating sannyasis and yogis have existed since the time of Prithu Maharaj's sacrifice. This cheating was very foolishly introduced by King Indra. In some ages, such cheating is very prominent, and in other ages, not so prominent. It is the duty of a sannyasi to be very cautious because, as stated by Lord Chaitanya, sannyasira alpachitra sarva loke gaya. A little spot is a sannyasi, in the sannyasi's character will be magnified by the public. Yeah, so all saintly people, especially sannyasis, are very closely, uh, um, very closely watched by the public, and even a little spot of deviation uh, is made into a big, let's say, uh, sinful activity. Why? Because of enviousness. Everybody makes some mistake, but they have to be humble enough to accept the fact that they made a mistake and ask for forgiveness. But a nonsense person never accepts that they made a mistake. And that causes havoc in the society. Okay, so in other words, one who offers the results of his activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually a sannyasi and yogi. Cheating sannyasis and yogis have existed since the time of Prithu Maharaj's sacrifice. This cheating was very foolishly introduced by King Indra. In some ages, such cheating is very prominent, and in other ages, not so prominent. It is the duty of a sannyasi to be very cautious because, as stated by Lord Chaitanya, sannyasira alpa chidra sarve loke gaya. A little spot in a sannyasi's character will be magnified by the public. Therefore, unless one is very sincerely and serious, he should not take up the order of sannyasa. One should not use this order as a means to cheat the public. It is better not to take up the sannyasa, not to take up sannyasa in this age of Kali because provocations are very strong in this age. Only a very exalted person advanced in spiritual understanding should attempt to take up the sannyasa. One should not adopt this order as a means of livelihood or for some material purpose. Okay, so sannyasa means that one gives up all desire for sense gratification and he engages strictly in the service of the Lord with no, uh, let's say, enviousness, with no jealousy, with no bad thoughts, always a well wisher of others. But if a person falsely assumes the garb or clothing of a sannyasi, and in order to have an easy life, and but at the same time engage in sense gratification, that is the most horrible uh, situation because it corrupts society. One should not become a sannyasi to have an easy life and where people give all kinds of presents and give all kinds of respect. And the sannyasi just takes advantage of that for his own sense gratification. The sannyasi should have a vow of poverty. That not that he's poor, but sannyasis will receive a lot of wealth. They should distribute it immediately to help the general populace. They should not hoard wealth because that will cause them to fall down and engage in sinful activities. Okay. Yeah, even Napoleon said that money is a good servant and a bad master. So, so if we uh, hoard money and use it for only for sense gratification, that means that we'll be corrupted. But if we use all assets in the service of the Lord and are magnanimous by distributing those, uh, what do you call it, opulences for the general populace, then a person is glorified for being such a generous and saintly person. When the son of King Prithu was informed by Atri of King Indra's trick, he stole the horse that was necessary for the completion of the sacrifice. He immediately became very angry and followed Indra to kill him, calling, "Wait, wait." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The words tista tista are used by a Kshatriya when he challenges his enemy. When fighting, a Kshatriya cannot flee from the battlefield. However, when a Kshatriya out of cowardice flees from the battlefield, showing his back to his enemy, he is challenged with the words tista tista. Okay. Uh, a real Kshatriya does not kill his enemy from behind, nor does a real Kshatriya turn his back on the battlefield. According to Kshatriya principle and spirit, one either attains victory or dies on the battlefield. Although King Indra was very exalted, being the king of heaven, he became degraded due to his stealing the horse intended for sacrifice. Therefore, he fled without observing the Kshatriya principles, and the son of Peter had to challenge him with the words Tista, Tista. Okay, so you see, this is very, very significant statement here. One becomes degraded due to sinful activities. And when one is degraded, he loses all, uh, let's say, uh, all his good qualities and uh, is basically uh, hated by the public. A A person who lies and cheats and is violent and is unholy is not at all uh, liked by the public. So to have a good reputation is much better than having a lot of money and being a mean person. A good reputation means that you're not jealous, you're not envious, you're a well wisher. It's like Prabhupada, he would always end his letters by writing, your ever well wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. That is the culture of a pure devotee. He's a well wisher. He has no thoughts of envy or jealousy or lust. Uh, Lust, anger, and greed are considered the three doors to hell. But you will not find lust, anger, or greed in the behavior of a genuine devotee. But someone may be dressed like a genuine devotee, but if they manifest these qualities of lust, anger, and greed, they're no better than a dog. And unfortunately, there are too many dogs that are dressed like sadhus nowadays. They're just cheating the public to get money and to enjoy sense gratification. Okay, text number 14. King Indra was fraudulently dressed as a sannyasi, having knotted his hair on his head and smeared ashes all over his body. Upon seeing such dress, the son of King Prithu considered Indra a religious man and pious sannyasi. Therefore, he did not release his arrows. Well, you shouldn't judge a person by their clothing. You should judge a person by their speaking and thoughts. If they are always a well wisher, then you know they're a devotee. But they might be dressed really nicely, but they speak nonsense or they use foul language, then they're no better than a donkey. When Atri Muni saw that the son of King Prithu did not kill Indra, but returned deceived by him, Atri Muni again instructed him to kill the heavenly king because he thought that Indra had become the lowliest of all demigods due to his impeding the execution of King Prithu's sacrifice. Yeah, when you are envious of a person, or when someone is envious of another person, they'll try and destroy that person and his opulences. They cannot tolerate the fact that such a person is so prominent. It happens a lot in society where a good person is killed by bad people because they're jealous and envious, and they can't stand the fact that such a good person and being respected by the public. Text 16. Being thus informed, the grandson of King Venu immediately began to follow Indra, who was fleeing through the sky in great haste. He was very angry with him, and he chased him just as the king of the vultures chased Ravana. Whoa, that's pretty nasty. Text 17. When Indra saw that the son of Prithu was chasing him, he immediately abandoned his false dress and left the horse. Indeed, he disappeared from, 1 second, the very spot, and the great hero, the son of Maharaj Prithu, returned the horse to his father's sacrificial arena. Okay, now what are we reading here? We're reading that some elevated and very prominent persons can act in a bad way sometimes. And it's really shocking and not very shocking. And they'll lose their notoriety, and they will be uh, they'll be pursued. They'll be considered rascals. Right? So, text 18. My dear Lord Vidura, when the great sages observed the wonderful prowess of the son of King Prithu, they all agreed to give him the name Vijitasva. Okay, let's see what that means. Vijitasva. 1 second. My dear Vidura, Indra, being the king of heaven and very powerful, immediately brought a dense darkness upon the sacrificial arena, covering the whole scene in this way. He again took away the horse, which was chained with golden shackles near the wooden instrument where animals were sacrificed. The great sage, next, text 20, the great sage Atri again pointed out the son of King Prithu, that Indra was fleeing through the sky. The great hero, the son of Prithu, chased him again, but when he saw that Indra was carrying in his hand a staff with a skull at the top, the staff means a stick, and with this skull at the top, skull means the head of a person, and was again wearing the dress of a sannyasi, he still chose not to kill him. Well, see, that's actually a very significant point because even though a exalted person might perform unholy activity, still he should receive some modicum of respect. This is hard for some people to understand, but it is the Vedic way of life that even bad people should be respected to a certain degree. Okay, so here it says, the great sage Atri again pointed out to the son of King Prithu that Indra was fleeing through the sky. The great hero, the son of Prithu, chased him again, but when he saw that Indra was carrying in his hand a staff with a skull at the top and was again wearing the dress of a sannyasi, he still chose not to kill him. Well, why? Because he saw that you don't kill a very exalted person, even though they may be acting in a very low class way. That's culture. Okay, when the great sage Atri again gave directions, the son of King Prithu became very angry and placed an arrow on his bow. Meaning, it's like pulling out the gun from your pocket and ready to shoot it. Upon seeing this, King Indra immediately abandoned the false dress of a sannyasi and, giving up the horse, made himself invisible. Well, obviously, King Indra has mystical powers. But even though he has mystical powers, he becomes frightened and by good people who become angry with his bad behavior. Text 22. Then the great hero Vijitasva, the son of King Prithu, again took the horse and returned to his father's sacrificial arena. Since that time, certain men with a poor fund of knowledge have adopted the dress of a false sannyasi. It was King Indra who introduced this. Wow. So, right from ancient times, there were what you call rascals, people uh, uh, acting as if they're sannyasis, but they're actually not qualified at all. So, you should not judge a person simply by their dress. You should judge a person by their actions and the way they talk. Since time immemorial, the sannyasa order has carried the tridanda. Later, Sankaracharya introduced the ekadandi sannyasi. A tridandi sannyasi is a Vaishnava sannyasi, and an ekadandi sannyasi is a Mayavadi sannyasi. There are many other types of sannyasis who are not approved by Vedic rituals. A type of pseudo sannyasa was introduced by Indra when he tried to hide himself from the attack of Vijitasva, the great son of King Prithu. Now, there are many different types of sannyasis. Some of them go naked, and some of them carry a skull and trident, generally known as kapalika. All of them were introduced under some meaningless circumstances, and those who have a poor fund of knowledge accept these false sannyasis and their pretenses, although they are not bona fide guides to spiritual advancement. At the present moment, some missionary institutions, without referring to the Vedic rituals, have introduced some sannyasis who engage in sinful activities. The sinful activities forbidden by the Shastras are illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. These so-called sannyasis indulge in all these activities. They eat meat and flesh, fish, eggs, and just about everything. They sometimes drink with the excuse that without alcohol, fish, and meat, it is impossible to remain in the cold countries near the Arctic zone. Yeah, that's very funny. Uh, they say, well, because we're living in the West and in wintertime it's very cold, so therefore we need to drink some alcohol and eat fish and meat. These sannyasis introduce all these sinful activities in the name of serving the poor, and consequently, poor animals are cut to pieces and go into the bellies of these sannyasis. As described in the following verses, such sannyasis are pakandis. Vedic literature states that a person who puts Lord Narayana on the level with Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma immediately becomes a pakandi, as stated in the Puranas. Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradri Daivatai Samat Vena Viksheta Sa Pasandi Bhaved Dhruvam. In Kali Yuga, the Pakandis are very prominent. However, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has tried to kill all these Pakandis by introducing his Sankirtana movement. Those who take advantage of the Sankirtana movement of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness will be able to save themselves from the influence of these Prakandis. Well, Prakandis are nonsense people who dress like saintly persons, but who act like demons. And it says, Vedic literature states that a person who puts Lord Narayana on the level with Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma immediately becomes a Pakandi. as stated in the Puranas. So there's a difference between Lord Krishna and the demigods. And one should understand that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead, and demigods are his servants. Not that they're all equal, but that's what these Pakandis do. They try and put uh, everybody on, let's say, a very low level. Okay, text 23. Whatever different forms Indra assumed as a mendicant because of his desire to seize the horse were symbols of atheistic philosophy. Okay, that's a very significant statement. Atheistic philosophy. It can be recognized by and what began by Indra's nonsense. According to Vedic civilization, sannyasi is one of the essential items in the program of the Varna Ashrama institution. One should accept sannyasa according to the parampara system of the acharyas. At the present moment, however, many so-called sannyasis or mendicants. A mendicant is a person who lives very frugally and has the right to beg, but he only uses whatever he gets through begging in the service of the Lord. He's not begging in order to have an opulent life. Like, for example, there are groups of gypsies that go around, even in the United States, and they pretend that they're very poor and they beg. And they make their living by doing that. But then you see that they're not actually poor. They're just pretending to be poor to get the sympathy of honest people and get their money and then spend it for their own sense gratification. And there are groups of gypsies like that in the United States. Gypsies are, they originated from India, and they're basically demoniac people, not very good people. They like to cheat and lie and make money in different ways to support their sinful activities. Whatever different forms Indra assumed as a mendicant, meaning someone who's asking for alms, who's asking to get money by pretending to be poor, because of his desire to seize the horse. Whatever different forms Indra assumed as a mendicant, because of his desire to seize the horse, were symbols of atheistic philosophy. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to Vedic civilization, sannyasa is one of the essential items in the program of the Varna Ashrama institution. One should accept sannyasa according to the parampara system of the acharyas. At the present moment, however, many so-called sannyasis or mendicants have no understanding of God consciousness. Such sannyasa was introduced by Indra because of his jealousy of Maharaj Prithu. And what he introduced is again appearing in the age of Kali. Practically, none of the sannyasis in this age are bona fide. Whoa, it's a major statement by Prabhupada. Practically, none of the sannyasis in this age are bona fide. Yeah, you'll see they're fat, they have gold necklaces and very wealthy, very let's say rings and different things like that are all opulent, and they eat opulent food. They don't act at all like a sannyasi. Practically none of the sannyasis in this age are bona fide. No one can introduce any new system into the Vedic way of life. If one does so out of malice, meaning bad behavior, he is to be known as a pasandi or atheist. In the Vaishnava Tantra, it is said, Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivatai Samat Vain Naiva Viksita Sapasandi Bhaved Dhruvam. Although it is forbidden, there are many pasandis who coin terms like Daridra Narayana and Swami Narayana, although not even such demigods as Brahma and Shiva can be equal to Narayana. Yeah, so they act as if they are on the level of Lord Narayana, although not even such demigods as Brahma and Shiva can be equal to Narayana. Wow. So in other words, they are falsely acting and they're rascals. They think that they're on such a high level, but actually they're very low class people. In this way, King Indra, text 24 and 25, in this way, King Indra, in order to steal the horse from King Prithu's sacrifice, adopted several orders of sannyasa. Some sannyasis go naked, and sometimes they wear red garments and pass under the name of kapalika. These are simply symbolic representations of their sinful activities. These so-called sannyasis are very much appreciated by sinful men because they are all godless atheists and very expert in putting forward arguments and reasons to support their case. We must know, however, that they are only passing as adherents of religion and are not so, in fact. So they're only acting as if they are religious, but they are actually sinful. So these so-called sannyasis are very much appreciated by sinful men because they are all godless atheists and very expert in putting forward arguments and reasons to support their case. We must know, however, that they are only passing as adherents of religion and are not being attracted to them. They spoil their life. Okay, so attracted to them. What is the them? Let's see. We must know, however, that they are only passing as adherents of religion and are not so, in fact. Unfortunately, bewildered persons accept them as religious, and being attracted to them, they spoil their life. Yeah, there's so many bogus sannyasis in the world, and anyone who's attracted to them, it spoils their life. So we should be very careful. We should know what it means to be a genuine sannyasi. A genuine sannyasi does not engage in any heinous activities: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, intoxication, philandering with women, and so forth. A real sannyasi is strictly engaged in pure devotional service and does not begin to act like a pasandi, or acting like as very expensive clothing and drives very expensive car and is always eating opulent food and so forth. That just corrupts people. When they see that, they think, "Oh, well, I can do that too," you know. But a real sannyasi has a vow of poverty, even though he might receive hundreds and millions of dollars in offerings. He distributes that money to people who are qualified to receive alms. Uh, you can't just give money freely to anybody. You must, if you have extra money, then you should give it to genuine sannyasis and genuine saintly persons, but not to imposters and sense gratifiers. Okay. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, men in this age of Kali are short lived, devoid of spiritual knowledge, and susceptible to accept false religious systems due to their unfortunate condition. Thus, they always remain mentally disturbed. The Vedic Shastras practically prohibit the adoption of sannyasa in the age of Kali because less intelligent men may accept the sannyasa order for cheating purposes. Actually, the only religion is the religion of surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We must serve the Lord in Krishna consciousness. All other systems of sannyasa and religion are actually not bona fide. In this age, they are simply passing for religious symptoms. This is most regrettable. Well, in other words, there are a lot of false sannyasis and so-called holy men or exalted persons who do tricks like produce a little ashes and distribute the ashes as some kind of a holy, potent thing to ignorant people. A real sannyasi is a person who has a vow of poverty, although he receives maybe a lot of donations, he distributes the money to needy people and lives a very frugal life himself. He doesn't live in abject, he doesn't live in opulence. He lives very simply and shares whatever he has in getting donations for the welfare of the people. So, how many sannyasis act like that? There are some. But if there's a sannyasi driving around in a BMW, brand new BMW, and he has a lot of rings and he has a lot of expensive clothing and so forth, he's not a sannyasi. You know that he's just a imposter pretending to be a very exalted person. Yes, please.
That is a description of many so-called sannyasis nowadays, Maharaj, in India especially.
Really?
And people are following in millions, not like.
No, well, they're attracted by the cheating that the sannyasis acting like a big mahant, but actually he's a low-class person.
Especially they are dressed like a sannyasi. Like that is common thing.
Yeah. Well, it's even devotees. When you put on saffron clothing and act, and it looks like you are a very exalted person. Like I realized this when I was many years ago when I had saffron clothing on. People were bowing down to me, right? Then I got a little scared. I was thinking, oh my God, these people are bowing down. I better not make any mistakes. I better not be a rascal because I'll cheat these honest people. They saw the saffron cloth and he bowed down. Sometimes they would come out of from their house, seeing me walking down the street. They'd come down and bow down to me. So that made me very, very cautious not to do anything to violate the understanding of sannyas or the saffron cloth. Of course, I was not a sannyasi, but I was wearing saffron cloth, and people, seeing that, were coming out of their house and bowing down to me. So I realized how serious it is to be dressed as a sannyasi. And if we are dressed like a sannyasi, we act like a low class person. That's very, very bad. Very sinful thing to do. Okay, I think we'll stop there. You can see how Indra, although he's such a exalted person, engages in low class behavior because of jealousy. That's how dangerous jealousy is. Right? But still, because he's such an exalted person, such persons should not be punished. Now, that doesn't make sense, does it? But
Maharaj, is it like Indra also is a demigod?
yeah,
But demigod, like he's having high IQ levels, everything, and then he might be having knowing the things, absolute truth, everything. How come he behave like jealousy person or these kind of things?
He didn't want anyone to be equal to him or greater than him.
Mm.
He wanted to stop people from. And that's what jealousy is. You want to keep people subordinate to you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Maharaj, in yesterday's purport, second purport, that's what Prabhupada also mentioned.
Yeah.
In text too. That Indra, he was envious due to fear that those who performed great sacrifices for the execution of mystic yoga might occupy his seat.
Yeah. He didn't want anyone to come be equal to him. He wanted, and he was willing to do bad things to maintain his prominent position. But see, a genuine devotee is not like that. A genuine devotee is glad to see people advance spiritually, even though they might surpass his, let's say, abilities. They're happy. But when you become jealous, you'll even kill a good person out of envy. It happens a lot in society. So we have to be very, very careful who we associate with.
Maharaj, in 23rd verse, Prabhupada is talking about Swami Narayan and Daritri Narayan and all. But they're doing very good in Gujarat and all, the Swami Narayan temples, and then whatever the religious activities they do, like they're so many good at, they having so many temples all over the world.
Let's see.
23rd March.
23?
23.
Oh, where is it mentioned Swami Narayana? Oh, yeah. Although it is forbidden, there are many pasandis who coin terms like Daridra Narayana and Swami Narayana, although not even such demigods as Brahma and Shiva can be equal to Narayana. Yeah, I don't know. Do the Swami Narayana people think that they are equal to Narayana? Huh?
I think Prabhupada is talking about percentages and all.
What?
Prabhupada is talking about they are not doing the spiritual activities or something percentages.
although it is forbidden, there are many pasandis who coin terms like Daridra Narayana and Swami Narayana.
But Swami Narayana,
Although not even such demigods as Brahma and Shiva can be equal to Narayana. Yeah, the Swami Narayana movement is there.
yes, Maharaj.
In
Throughout
India.
the world,
In a big way.
big way, Maharaj. Because throughout Gujarat, they are very prominent and they're doing the very good things. They're not knowing the total absolute about Krishna consciousness or total shastras and all. But Prabhupada is talking about like they need to know totally. Then only they can able to release this religious.
As long as they're not committing any sinful activities, they're bona fide.
Mm-hmm.
If they commit sinful activities, they're not bona fide. That's like us also.
Yes, Maharaj.
If we are committing sinful activities, then just being called the devotees of the Lord is a mistake.
Yes,
right?
Maharaj. But they don't eat even onion and garlic, everything, Maharaj. Swaminarayan temple
Right.
and all. Whatever they make and then they'll sell everything without onion and garlic. All the snacks items, everything. They have very in New Jersey also they have a big temple they constructed recently.
No, I know that. But well, we should be happy to see someone who's following regulative principles of spiritual life, right? But if they're just putting on a show, then you should avoid their company, right? Anyway, look, Srila Prabhupada spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world, and he didn't want his devotees to become phonies or imposters. He wanted us to be genuine devotees. And a genuine devotee has a vow of poverty. That doesn't mean that he looks like a pauper, but that he lives a very simple life and always engaged in Krishna conscious activities, right? And a very kind and gentle person and very erudite in knowledge of Krishna consciousness and sharing that knowledge and helping people become Krishna conscious. Now, should we be engaged in welfare work, feeding the poor? There's a difference between feeding the poor and distributing Krishna Prasadam. There's a difference. Right? Are the Swami Narayan people feeding the poor?
Yes, Maharaj, they do that. They just.
Yeah. So when we feed the poor, we also give them some prasadam. We give them only prasadam. And we can also give them a pamphlet or a book that explains Krishna consciousness. And we shouldn't just distribute food, we should distribute Krishna consciousness. And the food is not ordinary food, it's been offered to Krishna. So it's prasadam. So we should always have some pamphlet or a book or something that goes along with the prasadam. That means that we're not simply serving food, right? We're serving not only sanctified food, but also sacred knowledge, like Bhagavad Gita. So we should have at least, if we can't give a free book, we should at least have a pamphlet that explains Krishna consciousness, right? When we go on Sankirtan. So that we're not just distributing food, we're distributing prasadam, and part of that prasadam is a pamphlet or a book that explains Krishna consciousness so that a person can be edified, can be educated properly. So, do we have pamphlets like that?
Yes, Maharaj.
We used to have them.
I think
Yeah.
small pamphlets.
Yeah, and they're free, right? Yeah, that's good. Okay, I think we'll stop right there. Are there any questions, comments, or shared realizations?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhu?
Yeah. So Maharaj, nowadays the rain is not regular. Means lot of times, lot of villages they don't get rain regularly and all those things. So we studied that by doing the yagya, we can have the rain, or we can regulate it. So in this age, so what do you recommend, Maharaj, for those people in those villagers to just do our Hare Krishna Mahamantra chanting? And do you think that we need to also along with that the scripture like Bhagavatam Parayan or something like that?
Well, we should teach people to chant Hare Krishna. You don't have to be some big pundit with many mantras. We should teach people to chant Hare Krishna every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then naturally Krishna will take care of such people. So if we teach people to chant Hare Krishna and follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, then obviously Krishna will be merciful to such people or such societies. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. See? So the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the Yuga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It's the recommended mantra in this age of Kali Yuga, by which people can have a peaceful and happy life by not committing any sinful activities and always engaged in transcendental activities to elevate, by their example, to elevate people to higher levels of Krishna consciousness. So that's our, we have two astras. One is the Hare Krishna mantra, and the other is Krishna Prasadam. So if we use those two astras, then we'll be successful in spiritual life, and people will be very happy, getting nice prasadam and hearing nice, let's say, philosophy. Now, if people are not capable to understand philosophy, then they should have very, let's say, very, very nice prasadam and treat them with respect. We shouldn't be thinking, oh, this person is very poor, doesn't dress very nicely, or whatever. No, we should give respect to all people and give them nice prasadam so they can at least make a little bit of spiritual advancement. And if they want to find out more, then we can sit down with them and we not only we give a book, but better and even more powerful preaching is to sit down with them and begin to explain the book and answer their questions and spend time with them and then get them engaged in devotional service. That means that you're really very, very, let's say, merciful. You're actually going to spend time with an individual to teach them Krishna consciousness. Right?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Haribol. If you'd spend time to teach a person how to chant Hare Krishna and answer their questions and direct them always in the right direction of engaging in devotional service, that means that you're a very merciful person. And they will recognize that and they'll be very cognizant of your mercifulness and your kindness. Oftentimes it says that I was born in a very low family, living in the modes of lust, anger, and greed. But by meeting a bona fide devotee, I was elevated to the position of being a Vaishnava, and became free from all the bad karma that I had. You know, so that's what devotees are doing. They're helping elevate people from sinful activities to devotional activities, and those people who have good knowledge, they realize what a blessing it is to meet a genuine devotee who helps them completely free them from ignorance and take up the life of spiritual activity and Krishna consciousness. It's a great blessing, probably the greatest blessing in this world. So whoever is able to do that is a very magnanimous person, and they should be recognized and given a lot of respect. And that's what Prabhupada did. That's why even very low-class people, they were touched by the purity of Prabhupada and his simplicity, and the fact that he was sacrificing his whole life to spread Krishna consciousness. So that's a powerful example. That's what we should do. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita Grantaraj ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai. Haribol.
Haribol.
Okay, my dear devotees, we will stop there, but we never stop chanting Hare Krishna. We might stop reading, but we never stop chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today is Wednesday, April 16. Is there anything special coming up in this week? I think so. Anyway, we'll see.